Welcome to this week's edition of Money Matters, and you know that I deeply, truly believe that money does matter. I was talking to a younger person in their 20s. They've got a first world problem, and here it is. What shall we do with £250,000 in cash? I need to give you the background a little bit, and then let's roll forward as to what we're going to do with this. But I'm sure you all agree with me, being in your mid-20s and having £250,000 in cash is a pretty nice problem to have. But it changes your perspective on the world. For example, would you put that money in the bank with all these bank failures? Because you've read about is my money safe? What shall I do with it? Let's talk about how you might get money, that kind of serious money, in your 20s. I've got 6 children. 3 of my children, my oldest 3 children, Becky, then Jack, then Ben, by age, they didn't go to university. And as a parent, I hope I would never force them to do things that they didn't want to do just to make me feel better. I think so many kids end up at university, so many adults end up at university, not because they want to, it's because the parents want them to, so they can show off about it, in society, my 2 children went to university or whatever. It shouldn't be about that. And the gap between what graduates and non-graduates earn is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And one thing is for sure, if you are a graduate, you're going to have a thumping great student loan, probably. This particular person didn't go to university, they just started a business, and they did very well. 7, 8 years later, after leaving school, their business keeps spitting off cash, and they didn't really pay it too much attention until they did a year in. Like, whoa, I got £250,000 in there. I don't really want to leave that in my bank account. You've worked hard for 5 or 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is. You've got an amount of money. In this case, £250,000. He was asking me all the right questions. He was saying, okay, well, what shall I do with it? And what he didn't want to do was invest the money into the stock market because he believed it to be too volatile. Like me, he's a fan of crypto, but didn't want to go and put £250,000 into crypto because he's already got investment property, he's already got a business. But here is the beautiful thing that we talked about. As one of the great management mentors says, stick to the knitting. What they mean is carry on doing what you're really good at that created the £250,000 in the first place. And if you're passionate about your business or your job or whatever it is, you don't want the £250,000 to distract you from this. And this young man it's an online business, doesn't really matter what, but if he carries on growing it as he's growing it, in a few years it's going to be worth many millions. So although the £250,000 needs to be invested, it shouldn't just sit there in a current account earning no interest. What it equally shouldn't do, or even more importantly shouldn't do, is distract from the main mission. After a short discussion, my summary that I played back to him and he seemed happy with is you shouldn't distract yourself from the main prize, from the main goal, which is growing the business so that it's worth millions, as opposed to, unless I do something with this £250,000, I might lose 10% a year, which might be £25,000. So the main prize isn't to not lose £25,000. The main prize is to grow the business to millions and millions and millions. And in this case, when we went through that matrix of questions that I asked, the number one priority was to carry on growing the business. And the number 2 priority was to not distract from that task by getting involved in any kind of investment activity that would distract in any way, shape or form from the main mission. So it had to be hands-free. The third thing then is, what kind of investments suit you? If it was a completely spare £250,000 and it was almost sort of verging on the gambling level of interest, it could be that the solution is put the lot on Bitcoin, but that wasn't the case. It could be that you might want to buy a £500,000 care home that's closing down, develop it for another £500,000 into flats or townhouses or something, and sell it for $2 million, make a $1 million profit. Entirely possible, but not hands-free. So for this particular individual, it was my main mission is my business. I want it to be hands-free, and it's got to be an investment strategy that I'm comfortable with. The 2 investment strategies that this particular individual was comfortable with was twofold. It was property, as it was hands-free, and it was gold. So the next iteration is, okay, from that 250, how much do we want to put into gold, and how much do you want to put into investment property? And where we ended up was, we've got a property called Redmayne House. It's in a place called Kirkby Stephen, and it's It's about £800,000 of property, and it used to be a guest house. So it's perfectly set up for service accommodation because essentially the owners used to live in it. They would do breakfasts and things. We don't do that. So it's totally hands-free. It's in the hands of a management company. I've just introduced this person to some management companies. The intention is that they go and find a guest house, bed and breakfast, a small hotel, something like that. It's doing reasonable business, and there are many of these, and maybe put 200,000 of the £250,000 into that, takes 75% mortgage on it, so buy something for roughly £800,000, get a management company to run it, and a property at that size in that area, Kirby Stephen is between the Lake District and the Yorkshire Dales, sort of equidistant. You could expect to make £5,000 to £8,000 a month profit, plus you got the capital appreciation. Let's say you make £8,000 a month profit, times 12, you're close to £100,000 a year operating profit, assuming that you want to do it completely hands-free. Plus you get things like capital allowances, you get tax breaks and all that sort of stuff. So the strategy we came up with for this individual was to take £50,000 and buy some gold with it. And when I say buy gold, I don't mean paper, I mean physical bullion, as in, bars of gold, because I wouldn't trust. You're not buying the gold itself, you're buying a piece of paper that relies on the gold. You've got companies involved, if they go bust, it's not worth anything. I sold all my stocks and shares, it was October 2021, and I was quite public about it. I thought that the US stock market was overvalued, where most of my money was. I thought that the European stock markets generally are overvalued. And I came out of the stock markets and into physical bullion. And I checked yesterday morning, actually, I'm recording this in May of 2023, and the gold that I've bought and added to over that period, the increase in value of my gold is 23%. Gold for me is a hedge against inflation. It's just in case anything crazy happens. That's one element of it. The other element of it is, in this particular case, to invest 200k in an £800,000 business, commercial stamp duty, all sorts of tax breaks, that's going to earn you round about £100,000 a year after all costs, and it's managed completely hands-free. So I don't know if that sounds like an attractive option to you, but that's the sort of thing that we do at Touchstone Education. If you join our 12-month Wealth Academy, you get all the courses, you get all the knowledge, how to do the various strategies. But what you also get as part of the Wealth Academy is the network of all the other people in the Wealth Academy that are probably very near to you. About 80% are in the UK, about 20% are foreign nationals or expats invest in the UK. So it's very, very important that you've got a network of very, very diverse group of people. You've got builders, you've got bankers, you've got tax specialists, you've got all sorts of people that can help you with your journey. Then you've got a coach. There's 1 hour a week with 4 different coaches in the different specialist subjects that we offer. You can get help, assistance, guidance, check deals, and you can do this on a weekly basis. Just like the conversation I had earlier this week with someone that I look after about what are they trying to do and what are their objectives, and how can we structure a plan that takes them towards those objectives with their resources, in this case £250,000, but yeah, it could be anything. It could be many, many millions. It could be nothing. There isn't a minimum or a maximum for this. But just imagine you were part of a network. You had the education, you had the network, you had a coach on a weekly basis, 4 hours a week, 4 1-hour slots a week, and once a month you had a one-to-one session. How much more successful would you be financially than you are now? So completely up to you. But if you're interested in seeing how that might work for you, then my suggestion is that you head over to the Touchstone Education website, possibly read a few of the books that we've written, or I've written, Abby's written. Stage 2, come and join us for 2 days at Wealth Through Property online and see how we could come up with a tailored plan for you. I hope you've enjoyed this week's edition of Money Matters. As I'm sure you'd agree, money really does matter. It gives you access to all kinds of choices that you won't otherwise have. You, as always, have been absolutely wonderful. You're a unique, special, individual human being. Give yourself permission to shine. You've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you next time.